She skipped meals so her children could eat, stretching every dollar until it tore. Neighbors looked away, and her ex-husband mocked her from a distance. She thought she was alone in her struggle, until one day, a homeless man she once helped appeared at her door. What he brought with him would change everything, proving that even the smallest act of kindness can echo back in the most unexpected way. Before we begin this powerful story of hardship, resilience, and redemption, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. These true-to-life stories will grip your heart and keep you watching until the very last moment. The hum of the refrigerator was louder than usual, as if mocking the silence inside it. Maria opened the door again, though she already knew what was there. Half a carton of milk, a wilting head of lettuce, and a jar of mustard. Her stomach growled, but she shut the door quickly. Dinner wasn't for her tonight. It hadn't been for days. In the next room, her two children, Sophia and Daniel, sat at the table. They were too young to understand the art of pretending, so they asked questions bluntly. "Mom," Sophia said softly, "are we having cereal again?" Maria forced a smile. "Yes, sweetheart. With sugar, too." She poured the last of the milk over two chipped bowls, her hands steady even though her chest ached. Later that evening, she tucked them into bed, whispering promises she barely believed herself. "Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow I'll figure it out." When the house was finally quiet, she sat in the dark kitchen, her head in her hands. Her ex-husband, Eric, hadn't sent child support in months. The court paperwork took forever, and by the time lawyers got involved, the bills were already piled high. He had moved on with a new wife, a new car, and a smug smile whenever their paths crossed. "You always were terrible with money," he liked to say, as if that justified abandoning his children. The next morning, Maria walked to work at the diner, her sneakers thin from wear. She wiped tables, refilled coffee, and pocketed every tip with care. At the end of her shift, she wrapped a half sandwich from a forgotten order in a napkin. It wasn't much, but it meant she wouldn't go to bed hungry. On her way home, she passed the corner where a homeless man usually sat. His beard was gray, his coat patched with duct tape. A cardboard sign rested against his knees, hungry but hopeful. Maria paused, her fingers brushing the sandwich in her bag. She thought of her children asleep, their bellies never quite full. She thought of herself, stomach aching from sacrifice. And then she thought of him, alone on the cold pavement. Without a word, she reached into her bag and offered him the sandwich. His eyes widened, then softened. "Bless you, ma'am," he whispered. His voice was cracked but sincere. Maria managed a tired smile. "Take care." She walked away quickly, embarrassed by her own tears. Days passed, each one heavier than the last. She sold her wedding ring at a pawn shop, using the cash to cover rent. She canceled the phone line, telling the kids it was just a break from technology. She visited the food pantry when pride finally gave way to necessity, standing in line with others who wore the same look of quiet shame. And yet, kindness lingered in her memory, the way the homeless man's eyes had glistened when she gave him that sandwich. She wondered if he was still on that corner, if he had eaten again since. One evening, as rain tapped against the windows, Maria heard a knock at the door. She froze. Nobody ever visited at night. Wiping her hands on a dish towel, she opened it carefully. There he was, the same homeless man, his coat soaked, his hair dripping. But he wasn't empty-handed. In his arms, he carried a worn backpack, stuffed so full it bulged at the seams. Maria's first instinct was fear. "Sir, can I help you?" He smiled, rain running down his cheeks like tears. "You already did. Now it's my turn." Maria stared at the bag, confused. "What is this?" The man shifted the weight of the backpack and held it out. "It's everything I have, and something that used to be mine, but now belongs to you." Inside, something glinted under the flickering porch light. He stepped over the threshold with careful courtesy, as if he feared his boots might bruise the floor. Up close, Maria could see he wasn't as old as his beard suggested, maybe early 50s, maybe a hard-lived 40. His eyes were the kind that had seen too much and still chose gentleness. "Name's Raymond," he said, setting the backpack on the tiny kitchen table. Rainwater pooled beneath it. Most folks just say Ray. Maria nodded, heart thudding. I'm Maria. My kids are sleeping. She glanced toward the hallway, protective instinct rising like a shield. If this is a bad time, it's the only time I got brave, Ray answered softly. This won't take long. He unzipped the pack. The smell of wet canvas gave way to paper and cedar. On top lay a plastic-wrapped loaf of bread, 2 apples, a jar of peanut butter, and a box of pasta. Beneath them, neatly folded, a boy's hoodie hardly worn, a pair of new socks, a pack of pencils. Maria blinked hard. For the little ones, Ray murmured, noticing her look. Got these from the church pantry and a lady who runs a stall at the market. I told Em I knew a mom who could use Em more than me. Her throat tightened. You didn't have to. I know. He smiled, small and true. But you didn't have to either. He pushed aside the food and clothes and pulled out a flat tin wrapped in an old dish towel. He set it between them like an offering and tapped it once with a knuckle. The sound was solid, secretive. What is it? Maria whispered. Second chance, he said. Or maybe first one you've been owed. He unwound the towel. Inside lay a rusted cigar tin, edges worn to copper. Ray worried the latch with a thumbnail until it clicked. He lifted the lid. Documents. Neat stacks. Rubber-banded. A stiff envelope sealed with 2 strips of aging tape. A tiny spiral notebook. And, nestled in one corner, a metal key on a chain stamped with an address. Hope Street Storage, Unit 12B. Ray slid the notebook across. Read the first page. Maria opened it. The handwriting was cramped but legible, dated 6 years back. For whoever finds this if I don't make it back. My sister kept the papers in Unit 12B after Mama died. Deed for the lot on Maple, cash bonds Grandpa never cashed, and a claim check from the co-op that folded. I've been too proud and too drunk to face it. If I can't get clean, give it to someone who will do right by it. Someone who'd sit with you on a sidewalk while the world steps over. Ari. Maria looked up, dazed. Ardati, that's you. Was, Ray said. I got clean. 3 years this winter. The corner of his mouth twitched. But I didn't get brave. I kept telling myself I'd square it away, make a straight run back to being a person. Then you stopped and fed me like I was one already. It flipped a switch. He touched the sealed envelope with reverent fingers. These are the storage keys and the authorization letter my sister wrote before she passed. Her name was Lila. She said if I ever wanted to transfer it because I couldn't handle my life, I could. She trusted me to know who should have it. Maria shook her head, stunned. Ray, I can't take your family's everything. He lifted his gaze, steady. It's not mine anymore. I walked past 100 faces every day. They were kind sometimes. But I only met one person who had almost nothing and still cut her own food in half to share. When I thought about who'd do right by a patch of dirt and a file of paper, it wasn't me. It was the lady who said, "Take care," and meant it. His words landed like soft thunder. Maria sank into the chair, palms flat on the table, mind running to catch up. Deed for the lot on Maple. Bonds. A claim check. She had spent weeks choosing between bus fare and milk. Now a possibility sat sweating on her table like a fever. What if it's nothing? She asked, voice small. What if it's just words and dust? Then we lose an afternoon, Ray said. But if it's something, you and those babies don't go to bed hungry again. And maybe we take a piece of ground back from the kind of men who think they own every breath in this town. He slid the metal key toward her. It was cold and heavy, the chain biting lightly into her skin. She stared at it until it steadied in her hand. Why tonight? She asked. Ray's eyes darkened. Because I heard a man at the corner store bragging about your ex said he was petitioning to take your kids. For their own good, since you can't provide. Men like him smell blood. He'll be back. You need leverage before he sets the trap. Maria's stomach flipped. Eric's voice, clipped, smug, crowded her skull. You always were terrible with money. She closed her fingers around the key until the edges pressed crescents into her palm. Outside, A car idled and eased past the house. Headlights slid across the curtains like searching hands. Ray watched the glow fade. "We can go at first light," he said. "I'll come with you. If it's as I remember, there's a blue file labeled Maple Lot, Co-op Redemption. That's the one that matters." Maria swallowed, nodding. First light. They packed the food into the cupboard with a carefulness that felt like prayer. Ray pulled his damp coat tight and paused in the doorway. "You ain't alone, Maria." "Neither are you," she replied. He tipped 2 fingers from his brow and disappeared into the rain. Maria locked the door, turned off the kitchen light, and stood in the darkness, the key's weight a new gravity in her pocket. She imagined a lot on Maple, a rectangle of earth weed slick with dew. She imagined papers that meant hours in a language men like Eric understood. For the first time in weeks, her hunger quieted under something hotter than fear. Resolve. In the hallway, small feet padded. Sophia stood there rubbing her eyes. "Mom? Who were you talking to?" "A friend," Maria said softly. "Go back to sleep. Tomorrow's a big day." Sophia nodded, yawned, and turned away. Maria checked the deadbolt and returned to the table to gather the papers. When she lifted the tin, something metallic clinked underneath. She tipped it, and a second, thinner key slid onto the wood. Unlabeled, bright where the other was dull. It wasn't the storage key. It looked newer. Tucked beneath it, she found a business card she hadn't seen. A logo she didn't recognize and a handwritten note on the back in the same cramped script. "If they close Unit 12B, try the old office in the mill. Basement door." Same key. She stared at the card, the unfamiliar logo winking in the kitchen's dim. From outside, the idle of a car returned, this time not passing, but stopping. A door opened. Footsteps crunched on wet gravel, slow and purposeful, approaching her porch. Dawn broke pale and gray, the kind of light that made the world look unfinished. Maria tucked the tin into her tote bag, slid the storage key onto a chain around her neck, and shook Ray awake on the shelter cot he sometimes used. He rose without protest, pulling his patched coat tighter. "You sure you want me there?" he asked, his voice rough from sleep. Maria nodded. "You started this. I'm not walking into it alone." They caught the bus across town, Maria clutching the rail while her mind spun. She kept picturing Eric's smirk, the way he loved to twist her failures into proof of his superiority. If there was even a chance the tin held a path out, she had to see it. The storage facility loomed beige and anonymous, row after row of metal doors lined like soldiers. A clerk barely glanced at them when Maria signed the logbook. She gripped the key so tightly her palm ached. Unit 12B creaked open. The air inside was musty, laced with dust and paper. Boxes were stacked waist-high, some collapsing at the corners. A rusted filing cabinet leaned in the back like an old drunk. Ray pointed. "Check the bottom drawer." Maria knelt, her hands trembling as she tugged. It screeched but opened. Inside lay a blue file folder exactly where he said. Across the tab, Maple Lot, Co-op Redemption. Her pulse jumped. She flipped it open. Inside were documents stamped and notarized, deeds, receipts, certificates of deposit. And in the middle, a letter from the county clerk's office dated nearly 15 years ago. Pending claim settlement, unpaid dividends from Maple Cooperative Grocery. Ray gave a low whistle. "Told you it was here." Maria scanned the words, heart racing. "This says the payout was never claimed. The lot is still in trust. And worth something now," Ray added. "That co-op land got rezoned. Developers been sniffing around it for years. Your ex probably knows. That's why he's circling." Maria's knees felt weak. She sat back on the dusty concrete, clutching the folder to her chest. A deed, a claim, proof of ownership. For the first time, she saw a way out of the cycle that had caged her and her kids. But then Ray's expression darkened. He reached past her, pulling out another envelope wedged behind the folder. The seal was broken, the paper yellowed. "This wasn't here before," he muttered. Inside was a letter typed on corporate letterhead. Ashmont Ridge Holdings. Maria read aloud. "We acknowledge receipt of your interest in transferring the Maple Lot claim. Pending signatures, the property will be consolidated into our development portfolio. Her blood ran cold. Ashmont Ridge. Isn't that the same company that tried to take my house years ago? Ray nodded grimly. Parasites. They buy debt, steal land. Looks like somebody was already trying to cut you out. Before they could process further, footsteps echoed in the hallway. A shadow stretched under the roll-up door. Maria Ortega? A man's voice called. Smooth, confident. Maria shoved the folder into her tote, heart hammering. Ray pressed a finger to his lips, eyes sharp. The door rattled once, hard. We know you're in there, the voice said. It's better if you hand over the documents now. They won't help you. Maria's breath caught. How did they know she was here? Ray leaned close, whispering. There's a back exit. Take the file. Don't stop. But before they could move, the roll-up door shuddered and began to lift. A pair of polished shoes appeared beneath the rising metal, followed by the hem of a tailored suit. The door clattered upward until it locked into place. A tall man in a charcoal suit stepped inside, his shoes spotless despite the rain outside. His hair was slicked back, his expression calm, almost polite, but his eyes carried the kind of sharpness that made Maria's stomach knot. Behind him, two bulkier men lingered, blocking the hall. Ms. Ortega, the suited man said smoothly. My name is Mr. Klein. I represent Ashmont Ridge Holdings. We believe you have something that doesn't belong to you. Maria's grip tightened on the tote bag at her side. This land was entrusted to my family. I have the documents. Klein smiled thinly. Documents are malleable. Courts can be persuaded. Judges can be overwhelmed. What matters is efficiency. And efficiency says you hand that folder to me, and you and your children continue your lives in peace. Ray stepped forward, his shoulders squared. You vultures have been circling that lot for decades. It doesn't belong to you. Klein glanced at him with mild disdain. Ah, Mr. Edwards, I wondered when you'd resurface. You had your chance to claim this long ago. Instead, you wasted it. And now you think you can play hero by passing the mess to this woman. Ray's jaw clenched. She's not alone. Maria's heart pounded, but she found her voice. You can't bully me. I won't give it to you. Klein sighed, as if disappointed by a child. I anticipated stubbornness, which is why we're prepared to offer incentive. $200,000. Cash. Today. Maria froze. The number hung in the air like bait on a hook. 200,000 could erase her debts, buy security, feed her kids for years. For a moment, she saw herself signing, walking away, free from fear. Then she remembered Eric's mocking voice, her children's empty bowls, the promise in Ray's eyes. And she remembered Mr. Pena's note. Don't let the loudest voices tell your story. Her chin lifted. No. Klein's smile vanished. Think carefully. Refuse us, and you'll find custody petitions, debt collectors, maybe even a foreclosure or two. We're good at making problems appear. Maria's hands trembled, but she didn't look away. Do what you want. I'm not selling my children's future. Ray put a steadying hand on her shoulder. Klein studied her a moment, then gave a small nod to his men. Very well. We'll see you in court. But know this, Ashmont Ridge doesn't lose. He turned and strode out, his bodyguards following. Their footsteps echoed down the hall until the silence was worse than the confrontation. Maria sagged against the wall, clutching the tote like armor. Ray, what have I gotten into? You've stepped onto their battlefield, Ray said quietly. But you've also got the truth. That's something they hate. That night, Maria barely slept. Every creak of the house made her flinch. When morning came, she met with Attorney Hart, sliding the blue folder across the desk. Hart's brows shot up as she read. This is big, she said. The Maple lot, unclaimed dividends, rezoning potential. Maria, you're sitting on a fortune. But Ashmont Ridge will fight with everything they have. They'll attack your credibility, your parenting, your past mistakes. Are you ready for that? Maria hesitated, then thought of her children. I have to be. Hart nodded. Then we'll move fast. I'll file for an injunction tomorrow. When Maria returned home, Leo ran to her, waving a flyer. Mom, look, Dad says he's sponsoring the school fundraiser. He even told everyone he's taking us on vacation. Maria's stomach twisted. Eric was already playing his game, weaving lies to make himself look like the stable parent. That night, as she tucked her children into bed, a chill passed through her. She checked the porch before locking up. A black car sat across the street, its headlights off. Someone was watching. Maria shut the door, her hand lingering on the lock. The fight wasn't just in court anymore. It had followed her home. By Monday morning, Maria's name was everywhere. She hadn't spoken to a single reporter, but somehow the story had leaked. Headlines screamed from glowing screens. Local mom manipulates homeless man for land grab? Custody battle looms as inheritance dispute heats up. Ashmont Ridge questions legitimacy of Ortega claim. Maria's chest tightened as she scrolled. Photos of her leaving the storage facility were plastered online. Her tired eyes and secondhand coat made her look like exactly what they wanted, a desperate woman out of her depth. At the diner, coworkers avoided her. Customers whispered. And when she came home that afternoon, she found a letter taped to her door. Protect your kids. Walk away while you still can. Her hands shook as she tore it down. That evening, Ray came by, his coat damp from the drizzle. They're trying to scare you, he said, watching her pace. This is what Ashmont Ridge does. Pressure. Lies. They choke you until you fold. I can't fold, Maria said, her voice sharp. But how do I fight this? They've already poisoned the story. Even Leo came home asking if I stole something. Ray's eyes softened. Then you tell your story before they finish writing it for you. Maria blinked. What do you mean? You go public. On your own terms. Hold a press conference. Tell the truth about Mr. Pena. About the Maple lot. About why you won't sell. Maria shook her head. I'm not a speaker. I'm just a mom who fought like hell to feed her kids. Ray interrupted. That's what people need to hear. The next day, Attorney Hart agreed. Ray's right. Public pressure can protect you. Ashmont Ridge thrives in shadows. Drag them into the light, and they'll squirm. Maria stared at the stack of evidence on Hart's desk. The deeds, the letters, the claim documents. Her palms were slick, but she nodded. Okay, I'll do it. 2 nights later, the community center was packed. Reporters lined the aisles, cameras ready. Maria stood behind a podium, heart racing. Leo sat in the front row with Sophia, both of them beaming encouragement. Ray leaned against the back wall, arms crossed, a silent anchor. Maria took a breath. My name is Maria Ortega. For months, I've been struggling to keep food on the table for my kids. I never expected kindness to come back to me, but it did. A neighbor I once helped left behind documents, proof of land and rights that belong to my family. Ashmont Ridge wants to bury that truth. They've called me a thief, a liar, a manipulator. But I won't back down. This land isn't just dirt. It's a promise. A chance to show my children that you don't let bullies write your story. The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. For a moment, Maria felt powerful. But then, as the crowd quieted, a voice cut through. Smooth. Familiar. Ladies and gentlemen, you're being misled. Ethan stepped forward, immaculate in a tailored suit. He held up a folder and smirked. Maria isn't telling you the whole truth. She's reckless, unstable, and unfit to manage anything, let alone raise our children. That's why I filed for custody. And when the court sees what I have here, you'll understand why those kids belong with me. Reporters surged closer, microphones stretching toward him. Gasps rippled through the room. Maria's face flushed hot, her throat tight. You're lying, Ethan, she cried. He only smiled wider. We'll see what the judge thinks. Maria clutched the podium, the weight of the crowd pressing down. This wasn't just about the land anymore. It was about her children, and Ethan had just declared war. The courthouse was overflowing. Reporters clustered on the steps, microphones angled like spears. Inside, Maria sat stiff-backed beside Attorney Hart, her hands clenched in her lap. Across the aisle, Ethan leaned casually in his chair, whispering to Klein from Ashmont Ridge, both men grinning like they'd already won. The judge entered, and the room hushed. This court will hear testimony regarding the Ortega claim to the Maple lot and the concurrent custody petition filed by Mr. Ethan Ortega. Hart rose first. Your Honor, this is a case of intimidation and exploitation. Maria Ortega has rightful claim to the Maple lot, supported by deeds, unclaimed dividends, and a notarized trust. The opposition has relied not on facts but on smears, lies, and fear. Today, we put the truth on record. She called Ray to the stand. His voice was rough but steady. He described the moment Maria had shared food with him when she had little herself, and how he later entrusted her with the storage tin. I could have sold it. I could have drunk it away. But I didn't, because I knew she'd do right. The gallery stirred, reporters scribbling furiously. Then came Ethan's turn. He strutted to the stand, flashing his practiced smile. Maria can't even manage her own finances, let alone property. She manipulates people. Hart cut in. Mr. Ortega, are you aware that Ashmont Ridge's letter predates Maria's discovery of the documents? Ethan faltered. Well, Hart slammed down an exhibit. A string of emails between Ethan and Klein, detailing their plan to discredit Maria and acquire the Maple lot quietly. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. The judge's eyes narrowed. Mr. Ortega, did you collude with Ashmont Ridge against your ex-wife's interests? Ethan stammered, sweat beading at his brow. It was business. Business that put your children's future at risk, Hart snapped. Finally, Maria took the stand. She held Pena's handwritten note in shaking hands but spoke with clarity. I've been mocked for being poor. I've been called unworthy, unfit, broken. But I never stopped fighting for my children. This inheritance wasn't just paperwork. It was a gift from a man who saw kindness where others saw weakness. I won't let greed bury his memory, and I won't let lies steal my children. Tears glistened in her eyes as she looked directly at Ethan. They already have a parent who puts them first. It's me. The room was silent except for the scratching of pens. The judge leaned forward. The evidence is clear. The Maple lot belongs to the Ortega family trust. Ashmont Ridge's petition is denied. Furthermore, the custody petition filed by Mr. Ortega is dismissed, with prejudice. This court will not reward manipulation or deceit. Her gavel struck. Case closed. Maria's breath left her in a rush. Leo and Sophia leapt into her arms, clinging tight. Reporters shouted questions, but she ignored them, burying her face in her children's hair. Across the room, Ethan stormed out, his smugness shattered. Klein followed, his jaw tight, knowing Ashmont Ridge's grip had slipped. Ray met Maria's eyes and gave her a small, proud nod. Weeks later, the Pena Ortega Community Fund opened its doors in a refurbished community hall. Families lined up not for handouts but for hope, rent assistance, food programs, after-school tutoring. Maria stood by the plaque on the wall, her children at her side, her name etched in bronze beside Pena's. For the first time in years, she felt not mocked, not powerless, but whole. Maria's journey proves that no matter how deep the injustice, resilience can turn pain into purpose. She was mocked, betrayed, and nearly broken. But she rose, and in rising, she lifted others with her. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. Comment with the part that inspired you most, and share this video with someone who needs hope today. Because sometimes, the favor you return becomes the miracle that saves you.